Okay, and here we come out of the O&C building, getting ready to head to the launch pad. We did something a little differently. We stopped in front of the Astrovan to take a quick shot. Here we are at the launch pad, and we are getting strapped in here, and here you can see Pambo getting ready to get hooked up with comm, and then Zambo, take it away.
Yeah, I don't know if we can bring the audio up. We do have some of the sounds associated. Engine start. 3 at 100.
102, 102. Auto.
Throttling. 3 at 104. Looking for the roll. There.
Discovery has cleared the tower.
Discovery, roll program. LVH.
Roger, Discovery. On the right.
Discovery now 24 miles downrange at an altitude 23 statute mile.
Okay, resuming.
Resume, please. BSS, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Less than 50.
Burnout and separation of the solid rocket boosters.
103, 103.
Okay, so that was about 150,000 feet, Mach 5. The solid rocket booster separated. We continued on our 3 main
Within
engines.
2 seconds.
Everything worked great on ascent. It was wonderful.
Just started.
And then separated from the tank after achieving our main engine cutoff. And that was a last look at ET-120. It performed wonderfully for us. And we opened up the payload bay doors and got to work. And the first thing we had to do on flight day 2 was our inspection of our leading edges. This is a quick video of how that proceeds. It takes up about a half a day. It's a lot of monitoring tasks, and we just want to make sure we have a good, healthy vehicle. There was some discussion about the leading edges prior to launch, and we got a clean bill of health off of those. And then it was also kind of fun. We saw at one point that we could see ourselves in the window, and of course had to wave. So we gave ourselves an inspection.
Flight day 3 is a very, very busy day. We're off to the races very early. Performing a TI burn here. This is the shuttle as seen from the station, about 48,000 feet away. We use computers on board as well as laptops and the human eye. This is an optical alignment site that Pam used to perform the final phases of the rendezvous and docking. You can see we're pretty close to lined up there at this point in the trajectory. About 600 feet below the station, we do a pitch-up maneuver, a full 360-degree maneuver to basically present the belly of the orbiter to the space station crew. They have telephoto lenses, and they can snap photographs of our TPS to make sure that no critical dings have been sustained. And here we are getting closer to station.
So this is a pretty exciting view out the window, is to see the space station getting closer. It's a huge vehicle. And it's pretty awe-inspiring to kind of line yourself up, but you can see that I'm actually not looking out the window. I'm following the guidance of the cameras.
6 inches.
And I'll bring you on board here for docking.
Capture light.
Houston Discovery and Alpha, capture confirmed.
And ISS is in free drift.
Houston copies.
Discovery arriving.
But this is really the moment that's most exciting of all, is the ability to see your friends and the big hugs and the laughing that goes on when we get to see our friends, particularly Clay, who we hadn't seen in many months. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time for that. We got to get ready for the spacewalks.
Spacewalk is pretty quick. And we get up there and we start really fast. It's a very fast pace, barely attached to the station. There you go out in the airlock for a spacewalk while the guys outside start working with the arm. And so it's a very concentrated activity. A lot of people have to do their stuff according to a certain precise timeline. Here's Scott coming out for his first spacewalk, and here's Wheels attached to the arm carrying around a piece of equipment. Spacewalk was about 6 hours. Inside, they were working with the arm. Their task was to essentially remove the node from the cargo bay of the shuttle and put it up on the temporary station on the node 1. This is, of course, the fast forward. We don't go that fast with the hardware. And so while all of this is happening, of course, the spacewalk is still ongoing, and in fact, at this point, they were concentrating on the P6, removing all the connection there, hydraulic connection, ammonia connection. They actually got sprayed. Scott got sprayed a little bit with ammonia, so we had to do a decontamination at the end of the spacewalk. And but it was pretty fast. I mean, a few minutes later, as soon as you attach a few hours later, as soon as you attach the node, there you go. We go inside, open it up, and we have a mask and goggles. Looks like we are robbing a bank, by the way. But it lasts only a couple of hours, cleaning up the node, and here we are working already on it.
EVA2, Scott and Dan came out the door, and there's Paolo quarterbacking from the flight deck of the shuttle. And the main mission of EVA2 was to outfit the outside of the node, the things that we couldn't carry on launch, because it wouldn't fit. So they outfitted it with some handrails and some other pieces of equipment. And also they worked along the P6Z1 interface as we disconnected the P6 from the top of the station, getting ready to move it on the follow-on EVA to the end of the port wing of the station. And so there's Steph and I at the robotics workstation while Scott, and again, this is sped up a little bit. We weren't this fast with the moving the P6. It's about 37,000 pounds, I think. And here you can see from Dan's helmet cam, looking inside the Sarge, this is where he found the FOD along the race ring there. And that kind of spooled us up for what we thought was going to be the first contingency EVA to try to take a look at that. Here's Scott and Dan attaching a grapple fixture on the outside of the node.
So we'd gotten P6 detached at that point, and it was time to attach it and put it in its final location at the far port end of the truss. But there are no cameras out there. So the robotics operators got P6 all lined up, and then we sent Scott and Wheels out there to essentially give a visual guidance to the operators, the robotics operators, to line the two up perfectly so that P6 would get attached to the station. And so once everything had been lined up using the robotic arm, the spacewalkers used their tools in order to actually fix the two of them together. So very thrilling moment actually to get P6 anchored at the end. You can see how far out they are. That's the shuttle way out there. It's tremendously far distance out at the end of that truss. We also delivered a new MBSU, main bus switching unit. And just as the EVA was wrapping up, we started to deploy the solar arrays. Now, we had a very high sun angle, and that gave us a little bit of difficulties, but we got the first solar array deployed without any difficulties. But P6 has one little bit of a cranky solar array that's given us trouble before, and you can see how bad the lighting was. At one point, it came out of some glare, and this is what we saw. We were all just completely horrified to see it. As I think I described it as a fur ball. So that kicked off some very intense activity for several days as we prepared to fix the solar array. And we had to actually construct the cufflinks, is what we called them. They're just basically load-bearing devices that you'll see Scott install onto the solar array. And it took a tremendous amount of effort for the ground and the crew to prepare for this spacewalk. And finally, it was time to go out the door.
Yeah, the morning of EVA4, music from Star Wars was sent up, so it really got us fired up for a very big day in space. My wrists are being covered here by 3 layers of Kapton tape for a little extra insulation and protection. One for my daughter Jenna, one for Luke, and one for my wife Gail. So that made me feel better. We got on the end of this enormous boom. It was the space station robotic arm plus the OBSS. So about a 90-foot boom that I'm perched on the end of here. And I just was treated to a God's eye view. This is much prettier in color, by the way. Take my word on it. But I could see the entire space station and just a phenomenal view on the way out. About 45 minutes out to the work site, like threading a needle, very, very difficult robotics to get me out there. And at the very end of the trajectory, lo and behold, I was able to see the damage, which we hadn't been able to really visualize all that clearly from the cockpit. And it turned out to be a snag in a guide wire and one of the hinge wires that had ripped apart two of the hinges. And so I had to cut the offending snag out and then install these cufflinks. The first one went in very nicely here, as you'll see. But as things progressed, I really wanted to have my buddy Wheels out there on the end of the arm with me because I needed to have an extra set of hands. You'll see in the next sequence here, there's some waving motion of the array. I needed to push, pull, and install the cufflink all at the same time. So I ended up using 3 tools at once here, and it worked out really nicely. That extra tool there we called the hockey stick. That was my second best friend out there at the work site. Wheels is my best buddy, but and we ended up putting in 5 cufflinks across the breadth of the solar array here, and you can actually see the full repair at this point. We stayed out for another half hour or so and monitored the full deployment of the array, and pleased to report that it's producing 100% power, taking loads on the space station. And I think it's really a triumph of the entire NASA team to be able to pull something like this off in just 72 hours of homework on the ground. A lot of sleepless nights for many, many people. At the end of the walk, we kind of cruised on back to the airlock, and it was really beautiful. I could just pull off with my fingertips and then coast for 20 or 30 feet. Just really a beautiful sensation. We were outside for 7 hours and 19 minutes this day.
And so at the end of year 4, we had accomplished a lot, but still we had a few things to do. We had visitors coming up with Telecom. This is the president of Italy. Then we had President Bush
Good luck.
coming up.
Back to work now. Back to work, all you guys.
So we did a few of these teleconferences. We this is George and I going around checking out a little bit the station while everybody else is working, of course. We are trying not to bump the people working on the arm, you know, when you pass by there, and Pam is moving some water around and being happy on seeing us around. And Peggy and Clay fitting or reconfiguring the node. And here a little bit of experiment that was put up by the Italian Space Agency. I'm launching a ball that doesn't exist there, so it was kind of funny. And then we managed to also to talk to some of the schools down on the ground and carry out some experiment. This is an experiment that was put up by some high schools in Italy. So pretty interesting there.
As we were flying overhead, everything occurred with the Earth rotating underneath us as a beautiful backdrop, and we would occasionally see some marvelous sights when we had time to look. This was actually pretty awesome and terrifying. These were the fires that were occurring in Southern California about our launch time. So that's Southern California, and the fact that you could see them so starkly from space was pretty amazing. Those are the Alps, and that is Italy stretching out to your left, out to the south. And the mountains reach right up, and it's almost as if you could touch them up there. And then these are the Himalayas. Pretty amazing views. It was then time for us to think about coming home. We had some farewell ceremonies that we had to accomplish. We put our mission sticker up there, and then we had our farewell ceremony on the station. We had 2 folks that we were I guess considering most. One was Dan Tani, who we were going to leave up there. He was looking at a long mission out in front of him, and we were bringing back Clay Anderson, who had been up there for a long time. And so these were two men looking at a very long time, opposite ends of a mission. It was a pretty emotional, pretty wet, gooey time. And so lots of hugs, and then we sealed the deal with a final fist bump before we went out and closed the hatch. Then came undock and separation. The undock happened about 10 seconds early, and there's our separation. The springs from the docking apparatus give us our initial push out away from the station, and we end up separating at a very stately rate of about 1 foot every 10 seconds. And Peggy rang us out, as is now the tradition. That's my one input at 30 feet to double the rate to 2 feet every 10 seconds. So a pretty spectacular view of the station as we were going out, and a curious lighting effect because there's no atmosphere or anything to dim the light. The station is very starkly lit. Again, we're missing a little bit of this because it's in black and white. But the station is very, very bright, very radiant, and then the earth tones beneath it are somewhat muted. So it almost looks like it's fake, like it's two pieces of film put together. But it is a beautiful thing. And then we bade farewell to the station as the sun set on it, and we did our final separation burn.
Well, all good things must come to an end, and the first thing that we usually do that tells us we're coming home is we close up the payload bay doors, which of course serve the important purpose of radiating our heat to space. We have to hop into our launch and entry suits, which I assure you is much easier in microgravity than it is on the ground. And then it's time to get ready for the deorbit burn. And you can see us all briefing and preparing here. And as the engines ignite, you can actually see a big jolt there. And it feels pretty heavy. I mean, it's not that much, but it feels like a lot of weight after being in microgravity for so long. Here, of course, you can see the spectacular fireworks of entry, and as we come down, and we came over the continental United States, and it was just unbelievable. It was like doing a supersonic low level. We just felt like the world was on fast forward, zooming past us. Spectacular view. And then, of course, it was a beautiful, clear, dry day here in Florida. And you can see a little bit in the heads-up display there, the coast of Cocoa Beach there beneath us as we came in. Just a really, really pretty day, I think, to see the shuttle from a long way away. There was one little tiny cloud deck right over the runway, but we did break out at about 4,000 feet, and then, of course, George put the gear down. And here we are, touching back at the home of Discovery at the Kennedy Space Center. So that is a wonderful moment for us. It is a heck of a long runway, but we're still going pretty fast. So, of course, we have to deploy a drag chute to help slow ourselves down. But just an awesome thing.
Within about an hour of landing, we, of course, walked out on the tarmac and saw a lot of friendly faces and familiar faces here this morning as well, as we were greeted, our support crew and a lot of the engineers and workers. Here, we're starting to tell our story already. I'm kidding that I think I'm talking about fishing or something there, but it was great to just walk around underneath Discovery and see what a beautiful machine it is, and your handiwork just was beautiful and brought us home safely.